Welcome to the Unbox Some Fun cast. The date is Friday, September 12th. This is a podcast coming to you from Games Unlimited in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in which we talk about what it's like being on the front lines of a games industry from our perspective here at a friendly local game store. I'm one of your hosts, Chandra. I'm one of the managers at Games Unlimited, and I am joined by your other host, Kylie, who is the owner of the store. Kylie, how you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm always excited to wake up in the morning knowing we get to do a podcast.
Yeah, it is kind of an interesting highlight. I wasn't sure what I'd think about them when we first started doing them, but honestly, I really love doing this with you.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is only podcast number 2 according to the official podcast thing, but we've done, gosh, we probably did close to 10 of the video podcasts from the demo bar as well.
Yeah, the more sort of unstructured conversational type, which we're kind of returning to here with this one.
Yeah, so this is one of our freeform, our first freeform podcast. We're planning to alternate new podcasts every 2 weeks. We're alternating with a structured topic. Last week's topic was curating a game selection at a game store. And then we'll alternate those with this, where we really are coming in blind. Don't really have any idea what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and this is sort of a simulation of what it's like to just sit in a room with you and I would say, when we're talking about the store, when we're talking about the industry, when we have some things to kvetch about, when we have some things to celebrate. This is pretty much just what we do when we're standing around in your office right before opening the store in the morning.
Yeah. And in some ways, it takes me back. Games Unlimited's been in business since 1979, so 46 years. Many people know us just at our current incarnation on Forbes Avenue. The original storefront was on Murray Avenue, a few blocks away. It was a 1,000 square foot storefront. And we've currently got 3,600 square feet with room to grow. It's a very different environment. And we usually have like 3 people on staff at once. And I mention all that because in the old days, as it were, there was often times where there's no one in the store. It's just Chandra and I. We kind of got our tasks done. And we did have time to just talk about games we were playing, talk about all these things. And that doesn't happen as much anymore.
No, we are quite a bit busier in this location, which is all to the good, but it is a very interesting change in dynamic for us. We have so much more walk-in traffic up here. It's kind of incredible. Back in our old space, we were almost entirely a destination store. People would take time out of their day to drive over and check us out. Whereas now we get so many more random walk-ins who walk in with their eyes wide and mouths agape and say, "What is this place?"
It's actually a really cool opportunity, because there are so many of us on the sales floor to hear how different staff members interact with that type of customer, right? Someone who's
Oh yeah.
just in for the first time. One of my standard lines, right? People, as Chandra mentioned, they come in with their eyes wide, like, there's so many games, I don't know where to begin. And I usually look at them and say, hey, guess what? I get overwhelmed too. You know,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I walk in, I look at that new release wall, and I'm like, where did all these games come from? Even though I ordered them, but I may have ordered them months ago and have completely forgotten about them.
It's a frequent question from newer customers, people who maybe aren't as familiar with the gaming scene, as it were, to ask, do you guys play all of these games? Because, of course, when they ask about something, we usually have an answer. We can tell them a little bit about the game, even if we haven't played it, and maybe what kind of audience that game would be good for. And so it gives the impression that all of us play everything all the time. And, I have to gently disabuse them of that there is no possible way. There just is not time in the day. There's not the level of human energy available to play all of them. But that's kind of part of the charm of it, in a sense. There's always something surprising, even for those of us who've been doing this for ages. Apart from the store, you and I both have been gaming in some form or another since we were in, middle school, high school. You and I both got into RPGs when we were young, and collectible card games when those were first coming out back in the early and mid 90s. So it's kind of a treat in a way to see how many new games there have been over the past few years compared to when you and I got into this stuff.
I just posted in the newsletter that went out yesterday, in our store newsletter that goes out weekly. I have a little, just like a little bit of narrative at the beginning, whatever's on my mind. And I happen to just be thinking about all the games that I've played in the past week, new games that I played once, because most of the time, most games get played once because
Hmm.
I gotta play something else, so I know how to recommend it, know what it's about. And I was just lamenting, I put together a list of some games that, I want to play that game again. Because you do have, I mean, not every game that we play we love, but sometimes there's those games like, oh, that was so good. When do I get to play that again? Well, you can play it again, or you can play this other new thing.
My favorites are the kind of paradoxes where I play the game and don't have a great first experience. I come away thinking, man, there was something about that that just didn't click with me. But then I catch myself thinking about the game over and over for that whole night, maybe into the next morning, just thinking, well, maybe if I had tried to do X instead of Y, and that's what gets me to rethink it and say, I really do want to try that game again. I think I'll enjoy it more now that I've had a little time to digest. Those are the kinds of games that I actually really crave the time to revisit and don't always get it.
I was thinking it might be a cool thing to do, small bit of insight into how we run Games Unlimited. We have management meetings every week. And the very first thing that happens is we have to update our games played counter, which is a big counter that we have that tracks how many games we facilitate the playing of. So that's the first thing on the list. Did someone update it? And if not, we need to go update that. But the second thing is sharing a piece of good work news. This is just a way
Mm.
to sort of start our meeting on a positive note. Chandra mentioned we often sit around and kvetch. There's a lot of things to worry and stress about and complain about. But starting off on a good note, we ask everyone, and these management meetings are three of us, Chandra and myself, and the other manager, Dan. We each say something good that's happened at work over the past week. And actually, a little bit later in the meeting, we have a customer or staff highlights as well. Now that could be good or bad, just whatever's on your mind. But they're just parts of what's happened in the past week around the store. So I thought it might be kind of cool if we do one of those,
Yeah,
for us, what's happened in the last week. So, Chandra, do
for
you have any
sure.
good work news?
Good work news. I mean, there's plenty, but I have to say the one that I keep coming back to in my head, we have some amazing regulars, truly amazing. And what's cool about it is we seem to always be gaining more regulars, even as people move away or get busy or whatever the situation is. We keep gaining familiar faces, and we've got two undergrad students who have started popping in. They first became regulars at our Sunday game demos. They're here pretty much every single week to try out whatever game we have on the events calendar for that Sunday. But they've started coming in more and more throughout the week as their school and work schedules allow. And I have gotten to learn and relearn a bunch of games because of them coming in and just being so excited, so high energy, and really, really into every aspect of this hobby. We will play strategy games, we'll play party games, we'll play card games, dice games, whatever. Just they are open to it all and they are excited for all of it. It's it's one of those types of interactions that kind of reminds us why we do this, why we chose to do this, not just as a hobby, but as a business, as something that we do every single day and make our livings at, because we get to have those interactions and we get to help people like that, whether they're brand new to the hobby or our old hands. We get to help them to keep having that feeling of discovery. Um, and that is just such a huge highlight for me. And this past week, I got to revisit one of those games that I'd played previously and really hated my first experience of. But I thought about it, and the game's years old now, so finally getting to go back and try Decrypto again, with some high energy people who really brought a lot of enthusiasm to it, actually helped me to appreciate the game, and now I love it. I want to play more Decrypto because of these two customers and their excitement to just learn it and try it for the first time.
My entire reason for wanting to make Games Unlimited the way it uh, is because I wished when I was an undergraduate, I had a place to go and learn about all these games because I didn't know these games existed back then.
Mhm.
Granted, there were a lot fewer of them back then, but when I walked into Games Unlimited for the first time back in 2010 and discovered that this this hobby existed, this aspect of tabletop gaming, particularly board games, party games, um, I was mad. I was mad that I didn't know that it existed prior to that point. And I've always wanted to create a space so that other people didn't have to experience that. That other people didn't have to, be in their 30s or older and realize this stuff's been under my nose the whole time and I didn't know about it. So creating a space through the Sunday demos where you just get regulars that come in and play some games is like that's the thing. That's the thing.
Yep.
Because they could be doing any number of other things with their time. But I do think that tabletop gaming is very worthwhile and a lot better than many of the other things you could be doing with your time.
For sure. For
Sure.
sure.
For me, my highlights tend to be a bit different. I'm not on the sales floor really ever. It's rare that I'm scheduled to actually be on the sales floor outside of the holidays when it's all hands on deck. But I worked a Saturday recently, which is our busiest day of the week. The energy and excitement of just people are walking in, and in this location, there's on a Saturday, there is never a moment when there isn't a customer in the store. I mean, there's rarely a moment when there aren't 4 or 5 customers in the store. So just being able to walk around, see what people are looking at, that is a great thing. Just what draws people eye when we're not showing it to them. So I know I had some great interactions there. Highlight for me, getting to play Hot Streak. I mean, this this is a game that we have out on our demo bar, and it just creates such fun and excitement and yelling high moments for customers. So, that was one of those things the whole day. As soon as I saw someone looking at Hot Streak on the demo bar, saddle up to it. Hey, do you want to learn how to play? It's very quick. It's very easy. It's a high energy game. So that was a lot of fun getting to do that and work a Saturday.
Hot Streak in particular, that falls into the category of perfect games to draw people in. We've had others like that, like when we used to play Happy Salmon back at the old store. Remember, we'd stand up front. There was a big, well, as big as that space would allow. There was an open space up near the door, and we would gather a few people there and start playing Happy Salmon. So we'd be high fiving each other and fist bumping each other and kind of dosey doing around a circle. A bunch of adults doing it, and similar thing. You get people who walk over and say, "What are you doing?" And we say, "Why don't you jump into the next game and you'll find out exactly what we're doing." And Hot Streak very much has that energy. It pulls people in and they say, "What is this? What is this like fish figure and this queen figure? And why are you yelling?"
You said something in the last episode, Chandra, that's really been sticking with me. You talked about game stores, obviously, play happens. We're there to play games, but it's easy to miss playfulness.
Mm.
That play and playfulness are different things. And it's true when, if your store is full of very serious hardcore gamers, we're going to play heavy Euros, we're going to play, competitive CCGs and stuff like that. That creates a different vibe than if you're playing Happy Salmon up at the front of the store or Hot Streak. So
Right.
being sure to constantly remember play doesn't necessarily equate to playfulness. How can we bring playfulness back into things? I see it all the time when I walk in and just see the staff playing a new game, right, at the demo bar.
Yep.
That's fun.
Those are the best days for me. Obviously I love making sure the store is well stocked and presentable and comfortable and all that, but all of that to me is just support for having these times when we get to belly up at the demo bar with a few of us on staff, a few customers, and really have those kinds of interactions where we're being pulled into this experience, whatever it is, all together. There's something really special to that.
Something else that's been happening this week is it is, as we mentioned, date of recording is September 12th. So we are right on the cusp of the holiday season. We need to stock up. What do we need to have on the shelves? Um, One of the things that I am a big proponent of, and surprisingly, you don't see as much of it as you might think amongst retailers, is using data. If you're a small retailer just getting off the ground, you may not think keeping track of things either in a spreadsheet or paying for a software, an inventory management software, is worth it. Believe me, it is.
Yeah.
We can go back 10 years and pull out reports of what sold and when. And holiday stock up is a perfect time to show why that data is important. I always like to track things year to year. So because we have data from last year, we can use that data to inform what we need to stock up for this year. And the process is actually very simple. We pulled a report. Normally, this report would be October through December 31. We pulled a report September through December 31. And we looked at like, what were the top selling games in that 4 month period? And kind of like made an arbitrary decision to like, we're going to go down through all games that sold 25 or more. Now, your store, you might be a different scale. You're a much bigger store doing bigger sales. You might cut that off at 50 or more. You're a much smaller store, you might cut that off at 5 or more. That's something you have to determine. But by having that information, I'm able to look and say, okay, for last year, September to December, we sold 132 copies of Sky Team. That was our best-selling game for that period of time. Um, how much do we currently have in stock of Sky Team? That number's 25. So basic math in an Excel spreadsheet says we are down 107. If we look at last year and say this should be what this year looks like, then we are 107 units of Sky Team shy of having what we would need to sell last year. Obviously not a perfect science. Some of the things we have to look at is how old is Sky Team, right? Sky Team came out. Did it come out in 2024, like the beginning of 2024
I
or
want to
the
say
end?
yes. Might have been the end of 23.
Might have been the end of 23, but relatively new game for the year. It won the Spiel des Jahres that year. So these are factors that it might have put it in people's minds that say, okay, Sky Team is a game that we sold a lot of, but maybe that was unique to that year. We may not sell as many. As opposed to, let's look at, I'm going to go down the list, Boop. We sold 64 copies of Boop in that period last year. Boop came out in 2023, I want to say.
Hmm.
It's an evergreen at this point. So the amount of Boop that we sold last year is likely to be very similar to the amount of Boop we're going to sell this year. So I can look at Boop and say 64, we have 7 copies on the shelf, we need 57 copies. Hey, we should probably go ahead and stock up and order approximately 57 copies of Boop. Sky Team, not sure. Right? That's a conversation that we'll have. Do we want that many? While it may be too early to call Sky Team an evergreen, if we ordered 107 copies of Sky Team and Sky Team doesn't sell as well as it did last year, are we worried we're going to get stuck with them? Probably not. We're going to
No,
sell
not at
those
all.
copies
Yeah.
of Sky Team. It's not a risk, as it were. So we could go ahead and do that. The only limiting factor there being space to store them and cash flow, right? Um, this is all idealized. I can look at this and say, hey, do we have, if we have the money to just buy all this stuff now in advance of the holidays, we can do it. Depending on how your cash flow looks, you may not be able to do that, but you still need to keep that sort of inventory list together and keep an eye to it, right? Okay, well, we need to make some money this month to have enough cash flow to build it up over the course of the next few months of the holidays. Um, so that's just a little insight into how we do it. Literally just looking at the numbers and being able to make an easy shorthand of, okay, this is what we need to have on stock because this is what we know sold last year.
Yeah. And we, of course, have to go with our gut feelings and our intuitions on a lot of things. But if you can have that be informed by the numbers in the first place, instinct and intuition are great tools that we have as human beings, but we also have to keep in mind that instinct and intuition tend to swing toward extremes. They're either extremely optimistic or extremely catastrophist. And so having the numbers in front of us helps us to calibrate. You're never going to get the numbers exactly right. Instead, you're looking at, well, frankly, to make them less wrong, to to at least have an understanding going in of what kinds of things tend to do really well over the holiday season too. So, what are the similarities between Sky Team and Boo? They're very different games in a lot of ways. Sky Team is a lot more complex looking, but they're both two-player games. They're both actually pretty easy to learn. They both have high replay value, and they're both relatively inexpensive games. So having data in front of us allows us to sort of correlate some of these points when we're thinking about, okay, well, what else might we want to stock up and what came out this year? What came out within the past couple of months that we think might be really great for us this holiday?
This leads to another interesting point, and this is maybe something more geared towards customers, to people who shop at their friendly local game store, which is you might ask the question, well, hey, why do you have to worry about how many to get? Like, can't you just get more if it sells out? Obviously, we want to have enough that first week or two. I mean, there have literally been times when a game is in the newsletter on Thursday, and by Friday evening, we're sold out.
Hmm.
It
Yep.
just happens. So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that our customers who hear about it can come into the store that weekend, and expect it to be there. But the unfortunate truth is often our first shipment of something is the only chance we're going to get at that game for a while. Um, Having to do with allocations, not just distributors allocating things, publishers just may not have as much of a print of it. It's a complex logistical system getting games onto store shelves. So we often do have to think, hey, how many copies of this game do we want to get in? Because we assume that once we get it in, we're not going to be able to get a restock, possibly for months.
Yeah. I think on the customer side, if you're not in some way, shape, or form involved in the industry side, you tend to think of it kind of like going into a bookstore and, oh, hey, they're out of the new Brandon Sanderson novel or whomever. And, well, they'll just get more from the warehouse and they'll give you a call when it's in. And obviously, we try to do that as much as we can here, and a lot of other game stores do too. But the scale at which a lot of these publishers are working is wildly different from, I think, a lot of people's expectation. Even a game like Catan is not at the scale of Monopoly or Clue. And that goes orders of magnitude of difference for smaller games, for games from newer publishers or smaller publishers or unknown designers and so on and so forth. A lot of the time, publishers are really doing their best to try to figure out how well this game is going to sell in advance. But if they are overly optimistic, they can bankrupt themselves in a single print run.
Cash flow is a huge part of it. I think about how fortunate we are a lot. We've built up cash reserves so that we can do things like order a holiday stock up and say, hey, I'm okay to sit on X amount of inventory for 3 months before selling through. Smaller stores, newer stores, often they have to sell their inventory within 2 weeks in order to recoup the money to pay the bills for it, right? So that's going to limit them in the same way a publisher might be limited. This is a weird aside, but Wingspan comes to mind. Wingspan was a massive, 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 massive success for Stonemaier, and they knew they needed to print 100,000 copies of the game because they would sell. But guess what? They didn't have the money to print 100,000 copies of the game back then, right? So they just had to print, 20,000, sell them to make enough money to print 40,000, that sort of thing. And your friendly local game store is probably in the same position. They may know Daggerheart is going to be huge, absolutely huge. But they also know, hey, this is, I don't know what the allocations on that are going to look like. I might be able to order 6 now, but I may not be able to order 6 more next week. And I know my customers might want it. Like, I think I could sell 48 copies of Daggerheart in the next 3 weeks. I actually can't afford to buy 48 copies of Daggerheart, right? That's a situation that many stores find themselves in. So if your FLGS doesn't have the hot thing, it may not be because they don't want it or they don't like it or they don't think it's as hot as it's going to be or they just didn't notice it. They may literally have had to make choices about what to bring in because you need to work it with what's going to sell relatively quickly so that your cash flow can keep moving.
Yeah, it is always a bit of a surprise. Obviously, we learn lessons and we find patterns, but for example, why was the D&D Player's Handbook our best-selling RPG last month? To other game stores, that might sound like a crazy question, but for us, smaller press RPGs actually tend to be the largest chunk of that category for us. And whenever we look at our best sellers for a month, the top 5 are usually certain independent RPGs that caught fire for us for a few weeks running. But in this case, straight up, it is the 2024 version of the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, which caught us off guard. We sold out of Player's Handbooks, which is not usually a thing that we do. We're usually able to keep 4 or 5 of them on hand week to week. Yeah.
This is where we use the data, right? The data says we sell X amount of Player's Handbook on average a week. And I think for us that's maybe 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And last month we sold like 15 Player's Handbooks over the month and we're sold out. Like may have sold
Yeah.
more, but that wasn't something we could predict based on the numbers.
Right.
And we've been trying to figure out what happened? What was in the zeitgeist? Why was that so popular?
Yeah. And we'll ask customers, whether it's a board game or an RPG or whatever it is, when we start noticing a pattern, we'll start asking people, hey, why this game all of a sudden? In a lot of cases, it'll be some like silly little family card game that's been around for 12 years and we sell maybe 2 a week, enough to keep it in stock on a long-term basis. But now all of a sudden, we've got a dozen people coming in over the course of a week saying, hey, do you guys have this game? Do you guys have this game? And that gets us to wonder, and oftentimes, hey, a podcaster covered it, a streamer talked about it, a big review show on YouTube talked about the game. And so sometimes there are things like that that we cannot account for in advance. We can only try to respond to it whenever it happens. Never did figure out about the D&D Player's Handbook, by the way.
Yeah, that's absolutely an interesting thing. Um, I want to talk about something, and without going too far down a rant about promos, because anyone who has watched any of our social media videos probably knows I have thoughts about promos. So without going too far down that road, I want to say something, a piece of good work news, something that really surprised me and gave me joy this past week. We got in a game called Nature. This is from North Star Games. This is actually Evolution, a game that's been around for over 10 years, I want to say. Fantastic game. I won't go too much in the details of the game, but it's an awesome game. So now it's got a new sort of way that they're doing it. There's a base game called Nature, and then there's different modules you can add. So you can add dinosaurs or flying creatures, stuff like that. And this was something that they did a Kickstarter of. So Kickstarters themselves tend to be full of promos. They call them stretch goals, but it's basically a promo. And so we got this game in, and it's very sustainable. I can see they're angling to win the Sustainability Award next year, which this year went to Endeavor Deep Sea. No shrink wrap, everything biodegradable. Sticker on the box talks about how it's fully biodegradable. But there's another sticker on the box that says promos, plural, promos included. First edition printing, promos included in the box. That made my heart so happy. So
It
happy.
it made all of us happy here at the store. Promos are when you're working the front counter, promos are a nightmare to keep track of. Nightmare. You
It's,
want customers to get them because some people are really excited to get promos. Some people do not care. And so it just becomes a weird extra thing I threw in your bag. Um, but they take up a lot of space. They're an organizational hassle. We've tried finding ways to tape them to the boxes on the shelf, but invariably they find a way to fall off and get lost. There is no perfect solution. It looks chintzy. There's no
yeah,
perfect solution except putting them in the box.
yeah.
Yes, chef's
The
kiss.
the logistics, right? If the promo is a separate thing, that's a separate thing that needs to be mailed to me. The separate thing that needs to throw in the box at the warehouse. All these things just making it more difficult. And to what end? As Chandra said, now, okay, what games do we have promos for? Right? We've got to keep them somewhere behind the counter. How do we indicate that there's a promo for this game? Like, we've got to suddenly do the extra work of making a sticker, writing on it, there's a promo available. It doesn't look great. Um, so this way, it's right there. It's in the box. Customers know it's there. I just love it. I do understand to a degree the desire to have promos. I'm going to say to all publishers, promos, as a retailer, I don't want them. And what I mean by that is I don't want them to exist. I know I have publishers that tell me, and I have retailers say, oh no, I want promos. What I'm going to say right now, retailers don't want promos. Promos don't actually help them sell the game. We want them because you made them, and now the customer knows it exists. And so we're selling them something that's not a complete game if we don't have the promo. So when a retailer says, hey, we want promos, what a retailer is actually saying is, you made this thing, we want it too. But really, the thing behind the thing is, we don't want it at all. Don't have something extra and different. It's better if we just don't have it at all. But if you're going to do it, this is the way to do it. Props to North Star Games. Put the promo in the box. Put a sticker on there that says the promo's in the box. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to worry about it. The customer gets the promo. Everyone's happy.
Right. The bottom line is the customer wants the complete version of the game. And when you're dangling something in front of them saying, well, you don't have the complete version of the game if you don't have this, it just creates anxiety that does not need to be there.
You know, we see it all the time. They choose not to buy a game because we don't have the promo. Now, maybe that means they're going to try to find it somewhere else. So we lose out on the sale. But increasingly, customers like, I can't have the full game. I'm just not even going to bother. I will buy something else.
Yep.
Thank you, Nature. Thank you, North Star Games. Other
Yes.
publishers, please take note. That's the way to do it. That actually makes for a good business to business relationship with retailers, which is another thing I've actually been thinking about this week. Um, we have a lot of direct relationships with publishers. I communicate directly with the publisher. I buy games direct from the publisher, and those are great. I've always said I wish I didn't have to have those, strangely, um, because the vast majority of what we stock we buy from distribution.
Mhm.
Buying from distributors who consolidate. For those who don't know, publishers generally they make the game, they sell that game to a distribution company that amalgamates a lot of different game publishers' games, and then I buy from them because then I can buy lesser quantities. It's all in one place. It's makes life so much easier for everyone. But there's a lot of games out there. Sometimes there's stuff that distribution doesn't have, they choose not to carry, they run out of. So I go direct with a lot of publishers too. And we've been seeing over the last few years more and more publishers selling directly to retailers. Again, they kind of don't want to do that either. It's a lot more of a logistical headache on their part, right?
Mhm.
Instead of shipping to 4 or 5 different distribution warehouses, they got to ship to hundreds of retail stores. There's got to be a good business reason for me to buy direct from the publisher, a good business reason for the publisher to sell it directly to me. So I just want to put in a quick plug of things that make for good business to business relationships with retailers is having good margins, generally better margins than we get from distribution, having an easy way for us to order from you. Despite the logistical hassles of ordering direct with publishers, I do like that we give them, a bit more money with the direct business. We also give them data. Right? Oftentimes, publishers don't have the data from distributors on who's buying their games, where they're going, where they're being sold. If they have direct relationships, direct accounts with retailers, they have that. They can say, "Wow, SkyTeam's really doing well in Western Pennsylvania." So there's a lot of good reasons to do that. But I've had interactions over the past few months with some publishers who don't seem to understand, we need to get something out of it too. We need to get equal or better margins, right? Um, we need easy way to get your stock. So keep that in mind as more publishers are starting to try to reach out and make those direct relationships. Keep in mind what's best for your business and what's best for our business. It does have to be a business relationship where we're both getting something good out of it, and it can't just be a one-way situation. So,
It's the positive end of it is there too. There are a lot of publishers that we work with, board game publishers and RPG publishers. There are a lot of great RPG publishers who love working direct because they do get that data. And for a small company who's trying to kind of figure out what direction they want to take, that information can be hugely, hugely helpful for them in figuring out, not just what is selling, but where and why, sort of to whom it is selling. And so many publishers out there really seem to enjoy building that relationship, even though it can be, as you pointed out, Kylie, a bit of a logistical headache on both ends, because it's more for them to keep track of and it's more for us to keep track of. But it also gives us opportunities to have conversations with them, to hear about new stuff that's coming up. We've been fortunate to get to see prototypes of some things that we probably wouldn't have if we were only going indirect through distribution and never built up a conversation, an ongoing dialogue with a publisher and the people who work at that publisher as individuals. So it's definitely a give and take kind of situation, and we hope that we as a retailer are giving good value for their relationship. But as you say, it cuts both ways.
yeah, absolutely. We always like to end our shows with talking about some games we've been enjoying lately.
Mhm.
Chandra, what have you been playing the last couple weeks?
Oh boy. Well, blast from the past, I've been playing Hero Quest, which has been, I mean, there is a current edition of Hero Quest, and if you never got a chance to play it back in the 80s and 90s, you can have the opportunity. It is the original game, just with new components and art. But yeah, we've been playing my friend Rob's childhood copy of Hero Quest, and let me tell you how much fun that is. It reminds me why I got into gaming in the first place. Hero Quest was, as you know, and as some store regulars are probably getting sick of hearing, Hero Quest is the game that convinced me that I don't hate board games. And of course, it was also the gateway into RPGs for me. So I would not be here now if not for Hero Quest. So getting to revisit that, including with some people who did not grow up with Hero Quest, for whom it is not nostalgia bait, has been really cool because they are enjoying it just as much. The game really does hold up. I kind of hate that phrase, but it does. It has aged remarkably well. Um, and yeah, it's great to just sit down at a table, roll some dice, slay some monsters, and go through these kind of fanciful quests in a really accessible rule system, but also with genuinely great components, both then and now. The old school Hero Quest, the pieces, the artwork on the interior stuff, like the dungeon board, still looks great to me. All the doors and treasure chests were designed in a really clever way. It was a lot of people's first 3D dungeon outside of a video game. So, yeah, loving me some Hero Quest. How about you, Kylie? What have you been playing?
I think last Friday I took home 5 of the new releases. It's
Yeah.
like these are things I wanted to play. I played Nature, introduced my kids to that one. Um, I think the highlight has been a game, may not be on a lot of people's radar, game called Enthroned. This is from Smirk and Dagger. And it's been a highlight for me because I've been seeing this game since PAX Unplugged last year, last December. Um, going to cons, talking about people that we like to see. I love running into Kurt from Smirk and Dagger. He's one of my favorite people in the industry. Doesn't help that he's made us a lot of money with Boop. Uh, but, he wasn't really the game he was showing. He was actually really pushing A Place for All My Books that was about to go to Kickstarter, which I was so excited about that. I said, I'm going to back it. We want the deluxe edition. And that's been doing well. But off to the side, he had this little abstract two-player game called Enthroned. And in some ways, it reminded me a bit of Onitama in that, like, you can kind of move any piece you want. But there were two big interesting things about the game. One, you are secretly trying to get one particular character to win. So there's 8 characters on the board. You're given a card like, I want the knight to end up on the throne. Um, or the knight also has a group of 3 people that they want to see those 3 people get killed. One of those two things. The other player also has one. So some of the game is trying to figure out, even though you can all move anyone, who are they secretly rooting for? Because if you can capture that piece, you also automatically win. So you can either win by getting on the throne, win by assassinating the 3 people you want dead, or win by assassinating the piece that is your opponent's. So it's a lot of like, you don't want them to know who you are, misdirection. And it's got this really intuitive system where I mentioned you can move anyone. Technically, you can't. All 8 pieces are on this board, and the top 5 pieces, you can move one of those. And when you move it, you take it, put it to the bottom, slide everything up. So that piece is now not going to be able to be moved for 3 turns, basically, until it slides back up. But only the top 3 pieces could be moved into the actual throne, and only the top 2 pieces can capture another piece. So there's a lot of setting up, like, okay, what pieces do I move to set it up? But then the mind games, he just set this up so that piece could capture that other piece. Is that because he's trying to see if I will capture it to suss out who I am? Clearly, he's probably not that piece, because who would put their own piece in danger unless that itself is a feint? So clearly, I cannot choose the wine in front of me, kind of idea. Just a fantastic game. every con I've been to, I go up to Smirk and Dagger. I say, Kurt, you got that game? I want to play it. It's finally in stores, and I got to share it with the staff. I think we had two staff members, two of our
Yeah.
staff, Andrew and Alan, just sat there and played game after game after game. We
Yeah.
sold out the first week.
I walked away for like an hour and a half to go do some other things, and when I came back, they were still playing in Throne. Yeah, that says a
So
lot.
yeah, so I'm glad that's there. I'm hoping to push that more and see people really enjoy that one. So that's what's big for me.
Cool. Yeah, I actually really want to try Enthroned. I haven't had the chance because everyone else has been playing it.
The new shipment coming in, we should have another copy that will make a demo for the store because I took it home and
Yep.
taught my kids, and my kids keep asking to play it. So I can't bring my copy from home here.
Yeah. There was actually a customer at the demo bar saying, "Hey, what's that game over there? That looks really interesting," as Kylie was like sheepishly shoveling all the pieces into the box to take it home. So it's definitely a game that is going to, I think, have a pretty long life at the demo bar. I think we're gonna be showing that one off to a lot of people.
That about concludes the Unbox and Funcast for this week. Next week is going to be a more subject oriented episode where we're going to be talking about preparing for special days in the store, days like Free RPG Day. Used to be a big thing, Tabletop Day, days that we try to make the store feel like a mini convention. That's going to be the subject because we're coming up. Gamma's putting on a new friendly local game store day. It's going to be debuting this year, and we need to have some conversations about how to make that work. So, what's it like to make your store a con destination for a day? That'll be the subject of the next podcast.
Okay. Looking forward to talking about it because I love free RPG Day. You know that.
Absolutely. Until next time, I'm Kylie at Games Unlimited.
And I'm Chandra, also at Games Unlimited here in Pittsburgh, PA.
You've been listening to the Unbox and Funcast, so go unbox some fun.